welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and four accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Timelines episode 7. Today we're going to be talking about law of attraction and manifesting and some of the myths surrounding that. And this is a subject that Laura and I have chatted about a few times before. So I'm going to ask Laura to open the show today with what she knows about law of attraction. Can you just explain to people what it is? Because not everyone knows what it is.
Yes, I'm happy to. And I actually do know a lot about it because for a while that was my specialty in coaching. So I did a deep dive into this. So law of attraction basically really condensed down is like attracts like, which means like energy, like frequency, like vibration is going to attract the similar. That's basically overall, basically how it works. And people use it as a tool in order to manifest. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is that you basically can't go anywhere on social media without seeing manifestation, 7 ways to manifest this, using the law of attraction. It's all over. And when, whenever there's a buzz, like is something that's really, a catchphrase or something that's really popular, there's going to be misinformation, misconception. The whole story is not going to be told because many times people are trying to sell a service or a product. And as someone who really was in I was in that area for quite a while, I really wanted to talk about what it is and what it's not. And if we go back, this became really popular when the movie The Secret came out, which I think was in the late 1980s. Is that correct? I think so.
Oh, it is pretty
Oh, the
old.
90s. I'm sorry. No,
'90s
it was
probably.
90s. It was in the
Yeah.
1990s, and The Secret came out, and I watched that, and it was like, oh my God, like I need to learn everything about this. And I really did start consuming everything. Now, that movie, I think, opened people's eyes to a lot of what this is about, but at the same time, there was so much missing that it set up a lot of people to try things and fail and actually feel like they failed, feel like they did something wrong, which actually made them worse off than before they started. It's like, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, what's interesting is that this isn't one of those like it works for me, it works for you. We're constantly manifesting. This is what we do in 3D. Everything we do, we're creating our reality all the time. So it's not that something works for you or doesn't work for you. It's how are you working with something? How are you working with energy? So the basics to, well, when I was working with clients is, okay, what do you want to create? What do you want it to look like? And put it out there. Where you put your attention and your energy, that's what we will attract back to you. And you can, that it actually is effective. The missing part of this is that we don't know from that alone what subconscious programming you have that are going to not allow you to create that. We don't know what blocks you have. We don't know what soul contracts you may have had that you needed to experience certain things in this incarnation. There's so much information we don't know that just saying, this is what I want, I'm going to say my affirmations, I'm going to visualize, I'm going to pretend I already have it, is really, really setting people up to really be disappointed and to fail and be disempowered. So that's kind of in a nutshell, sort of my experience with it.
Susan, what have you had any experience with law of attraction? Have you worked with it or anything like that?
I don't want to say so much I have worked with it. I have applied it in my own life. And just recently I was working, alongside a girl that I've tried to help. I think I've more tried to help myself, but when I see other people, because your words mean something. So if you constantly keep telling yourself, I can't do this. This is never going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I try to remind myself of that, but also even people around me, when I see them going down a pathway, And that's really how a lot of us have been taught. We've heard it as a kid, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything." And so our brain kind of, takes that in, and then, it becomes a part of us. So that's kind of my experience with manifestation. Not much, but not as much as on a deeper level than you guys have.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I got into a little bit at the beginning and tried it, and it didn't work. So I didn't linger with it. But when I ever tried it after that, we all go through phases in our life when we need more money. I was a single mom, you got two mortgages, blah, blah, blah. Um, when I did revisit it, there was just this innate knowing inside me that I wasn't meant to do it. And I didn't understand why. And it wasn't until this, is what I was saying to Laura, it was either last year or the year before, I was reading a book, and it said in the book, it was a book by Greg Braden, who wrote The Divine Matrix, which is a good book. And it said in there that we're not meant to manifest. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. We're not meant to, it said we're not meant to manifest because when we go into manifestation, we're usually coming from ego, lower ego. It's like, I want this, I want, a better job or a bigger house or a better car or, a new partner. Or it's usually ego driven rather than what's for the highest good of all. And I remember thinking that, Laura, after The Secret, like, why didn't they all get together and manifest peace on earth and an end to homelessness and, stuff like that? It was all about materialism, promoting materialism. So that book made me understand myself better, in that what was telling me don't do it was my higher consciousness saying this is not, appropriate for you. So when I did when I didn't meditate on it, I was getting that when you are focused and intention on manifesting, you're in duality. So you're moving into creation, you're creating something, you're trying to create something new, in that holographic simulator. You're trying to turn the program into something solid to come into your life, into the physical manifestation. The problem with that is you're in one side. It's a bit like when I've spoken about the love and light thing. You're only in one side of duality. And when you go, it's like a pendulum. When you go to one side, it's got to swing back to the other side eventually. So what you're creating, you're also manifesting destruction, because you can't have one without the other. And when you're in the middle, which is, the path of, like I talk about with one, and everyone's being one and being neutral, it doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. People don't understand what neutral means. Just being neutral, understanding why stuff is playing out that way, does not mean that you're not going to intervene if somebody is getting attacked in the street. But it might be their karma that they're getting attacked, but it doesn't mean I'm going to walk past and ignore it. That's not neutrality. There's still neutrality is non-judgment. It's more about being in the present. It doesn't mean that you don't care about anything at all. People do misunderstand it. So being in the middle is where I was guided to be. And when you're in the middle, you're in the bliss zone. You're in that neutral bliss, present in the moment. That's when you're in your most power. That is the most powerful place anyone can be. And that's why society and the systems are all set up to bombard our mental layer with constant stimulus, which stops us dropping into the spiritual layer, which is the meditative, quiet space. And we all know the system's set up to keep us in our heads, and attention economy and stuff like that. But when we're in neutral, when we're in the middle, in that bliss, basically our higher self is in control, and it knows exactly what we want and exactly what we need and what's best for us and what's part of our divine plan.
Yeah, and it gets people thinking about what actually they're lacking in their life. So what they
Hmm.
don't have. So that's really how it starts at, and it preys on, Preys, preys on these people that don't have a lot. So they're
Hmm.
actually going into the lowest chakra, the lower energy of whether it's survival, whether it's, whatever it is, they're going into that lower energy. They're looking what's lacking. Oh, I should want these things. So you're actually kind of bringing people down. And then, like you said, it's like, oh, well, I need to manifest. I need to get these things. And this need is very strong. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely, it's like when you were talking, I was like, wow, that's really resonates about you are pulling people out of their higher self and their spiritual, seeking more spiritual, joyful things as opposed to focusing on the material.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's also really missing on this is that so much of the teachings, they're very mental. They're very, this is what you need to do. Whereas the way the law of attraction really works is who you're being. It's all energy. So
Yeah.
people like say your affirmation, and Susan, to your point, yes, the thinking of the words, especially if it's something over and over again you've been told, that's energetically, you're putting that out. That's part of your
Mhm.
early programming, and that's actually what you're going to be putting out there. And so much of, I think, what's really missing is whether it's the neutral energy or just like the okay in the present where you are, and then you're approaching it from a very different perspective. Wow, wouldn't it be nice to have this? Or, oh, these are some changes I'd make in my life. You're approaching it from a very different place energetically than I need to get this thing in order to be at this status level. Because that's so much of what The Secret was all about, was like, the red Ferrari and the house and the
Yeah.
boats and the yachts, which, that's not really what I mean, when you think about what people brings people satisfaction in life, that's really not what it's about.
No, it's not what it's about. So I went through a stage where I just didn't even bother with it, and people have asked me a lot. I've taught workshops and courses, and they say, "Why don't you do a law of attraction one?" And that's why I made the YouTube video about it. It's like, it just doesn't feel right for me to do it. And when I found that book, obviously that kind of brought it home to me that I was doing the right thing by just learning to be present, learning to be in the moment all the time, and just moving from moment to moment. And pretty much the stuff that I wanted to manifest did manifest. I've had at least three or four. I've lived in three or four houses that were, on the ocean or by the water. I'm a Pisces, so I like to be by water. That's my place. But one day I was walking down the beach in Pensacola, in Florida, and I was talking, like you do, to God, one, universe, call it what you will, in my head, going, do you know what? I walk about this beach every day, and all I find is broken shells. It would be nice to find a piece of treasure. And within a minute, I looked down and I found a full size, like 4-inch high seahorse on the sand, and nothing else. It's just this, and it was dead. Obviously, it was dead. So I took it home, and I've still got it. It's in a case. Like, it was like, what was precious about it actually brought tears to my eyes, because seahorse is my favorite creature on the
Mm.
planet. So it felt like that day, the universe gave me a gift just to let me know you are manifesting. Don't give up, kind of thing, because I was getting frustrated with it. But there were reasons that I wasn't manifesting what, the big house and the car and everything else that most people, if you give them a small house and an old car, or a big house and a new car, they're going to take the big house and the new car. Let's be honest. That's just, we all want to live in a nice home and drive a reliable car. I'm not against people wanting wealth and stuff like that. We're on a planet where it's supposed to be like the Garden of Eden. You can have anything you
Mhm.
want. Most people would choose wealthy over poor. That's just common sense. But some people don't care about wealth. So there's enough for everyone. But what I'm getting at here is, the more I looked into it, I found out that I had a spiritual contract that said I wasn't to get too wealthy before I became enlightened. And because I wouldn't have done all the spiritual work that's got me to where I am today. And that made a lot of sense to me. It really did. But then there was other little things, like your chakra system in your body holds on to experiences that, let's say when you were 5, your mum and dad are arguing about paying the bills and stuff like that. That gets stored in your chakra system, usually often in the sacral area, which is the emotional center of the body. That's the womb area. That's the center of creation, the orange chakra. So something as simple as hearing your parents arguing about money when you were at school can go into that area in your body and can cause blocks around the relationship with money. You might see money, well, money makes people fight. It's bad. So there could
Mhm.
be a belief that goes into your cubes of consciousness based on that experience. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing these courses. Some of them are teaching from a 80% knowledge, don't have all the knowledge, just giving the how to manifest, but not giving people how to remove the blocks that are there to, you actually making this into the physical reality. And maybe, like me, there are some spiritual contracts that you may have signed that you're not going to, do well until you've got to a certain level, because it would have held me back. I certainly wouldn't have worked as hard on myself if I had millions and was running another business or something like that. I wouldn't have had the time to put the effort in to the work that it takes to level up. And you know what that takes. We've got to get into all our trauma, all our ancestral stuff. There's a lot of work involved in raising our consciousness. So people at home, I would just, if you are looking at law of attraction courses and workshops and stuff like that, look for people that are connecting you on a higher level. So I spoke to somebody last week who was teaching it, but she was teaching people how to connect on to the divine, she calls it, to the divine inspiration coming in. So they're more or less getting guided towards their soul purpose and their life purpose and things like that, rather than just manifesting for the sake of materialism and keeping up with the Joneses or whatever you want. That's what we call it in England. Yeah, go on, Laura.
So when I was just doing law of attraction coaching, part of my frustration was we weren't uncovering if there were subconscious programming or blocks and whatever. And then when I pursued the modalities that I use where I work with the subconscious, you can find out, because you know what, also people have stress triggers. They actually have stressful situations where their body won't allow it, whether it's money or abundance. Just say, for example, there's the person's not comfortable with an abundance of money because maybe something happened, or their beliefs are not aligned what they're trying to create. So what's great now is that while I don't call it this, but if I'm working with someone who's looking to say to create something new, we can have the clear vision of what they want, but you can also find out, wow, is there a block here? Is there a subconscious belief that's actually going to be really, really powerful in kind of overriding all the other physical, mental stuff that you're doing? You could write affirmations, you can visualize, you can do all these things. But if you have very strong subconscious beliefs about your ability to create it or worthiness, like this is the kind of stuff. And I think, Janine, that's what you were referring to, is like work with someone that can really help you uncover this. And you're going to just have much more success than if you just kind of like go through sort of the motions and I'm just going to think positive thoughts and it's
Yeah, there's way too much of that out there in the fluffy bunny world, I call it. And just it's all about love. It's not all about love. It's far more complicated than that. And there are different frequencies of love. It's about unconditional love, blissful love. There's other areas that people don't even realize. But you're right about the deserving, self-worth, stuff like that. Again, a teacher could have said something to you in a classroom when you were 7 years old. It's gone in, theta brainwave frequency, boom. You don't deserve it because you were a naughty girl today or a naughty boy today. That you don't deserve it, anchored in. If you say that to a child before the age of 7, you've anchored in that statement into their subconscious for the rest of their lives. We've talked before about the importance of children up until the age of 7. They're just open to being completely programmed. So if people are trying to manifest and they're not getting anywhere, it could be that they've got subconscious blocks. It could be they've got contracts in their Akashic records that are holding them back, that they've agreed to. And it could be, anything to do with something like that that's stopping them manifesting. So that's when they need to turn to other people for help.
Yeah, and it's also about not trying so hard. It's really who you're being, and it's the dominant vibration that you have, just who you're being. So the more actually you're in a higher level, the more joy you have in the life, the more you just kind of let things flow, the more you
Mhm.
see things come to you much more easily that when you're striving to create something, because that's also creates resistance, because that's I don't have, I need this thing. And that's
Yeah.
something else that shows up all the time is this, I need to try to get this thing. The other thing is if you keep there's a level of whenever you're trying to create something, it doesn't matter what it is, there's a level of trust that it's there, or you can have it just because you want it. So when people keep checking to see if something's showing up, they're checking to see, you're in a way, you're almost canceling it out.
Hmm.
Because it's like, and I like would give people the analogy of, if you plant something, you plant a carrot or something, you're not going to keep digging it up to see if it's growing. Well, a carrot's a bad example because it grows underground, but you plant something, you're not going to keep digging it up and seeing if it's growing. You're going to trust that because you planted something, it's growing.
Yeah.
And many times it's a very hard concept to get people to embrace, is just this trust, this allowing, just living in flow and like being in as much joy, like you said, with bliss as much as you can. I mean, that's really the secret.
Yeah, it is. It does make a big difference. I would say the two most important things I've learned in my life is one about your Akashic records, and being able to access that, because there's a lot of stuff in there, and getting pieces of us back. You can get things like your third eye back from previous life, or I've had people have body parts brought back to them, or books, or other things from other lifetimes that have been useful in this lifetime. But being able to go into there and cancel contracts and wishes and permissions and all these other things in your Akashic records, and understanding the importance of being present. I think it's the most important thing, and it's really changed my life. Doing the meditations. I was meditating at one point 4 times a day. Now I only do 2 times a day, because I'm pretty much in the present all the time. And I notice it when I'm at home. When you're like pottering around in the house and you just, in your sweatpants, and you just cool, and you're just completely in it. You're just completely at home doing whatever you're doing, whether it's the dishes or, folding laundry. Just being completely present in that moment is the most powerful place to be. It's much more powerful than sitting down and manifest a new car. I'm going to manifest, and really like forcing the energy into that and visualizing. It all uses energy, when really just being present and being in the moment. It's like, what higher consciousness I could do with a new car. And that's what I did when I found the seahorse on the beach. And I said, I want a pearly white car. And I only had $5,000 to spend on it at the time. And I met someone whose ex-husband had a car lot, and guess what? They had a Cadillac on there that was 5 grand, and it was perfect, low mileage, and it was pearl white. So you're allowed choices. We've got choices. It's different, that's different. It's not just being completely numb to it. So you can say, I would like this, and just let it go, and not even get involved in all the focus and everything else. Have you got anything else, Laura?
Well, the other thing I was going to say, I guess it falls in the line with soul contracts, or maybe just, and some people, this may be like, people may not agree with this, but I do believe that before we incarnate, we choose certain challenges that we want to overcome. This is, we make this choice, we come down, this is what I want to experience. And, some people just feel like, wait a minute, I wouldn't have chose this. Well, your higher self has a much broader picture than we
Exactly.
can see. So if somebody is having certain, and I call them struggles or challenges in your life, to approach it a different way and not see it as being a flaw, or, oh, I've got this thing I can't, but a little bit more accepting to how I react to this thing.
Hmm.
Right. So I think it plays into sort of how we view manifesting, in that, wow, interesting. You can kind of get curious and say, well, if I chose this as being a challenge for me, okay, how can I don't want to say overcome, because that's like, but how can I move through this with more
Yeah.
grace?
Yeah.
And when you approach it that way, things shift, and you see that it's not, when you
Hmm.
don't have so much resistance, or you don't look at something as being like, my God, what's wrong with me? But wow,
Yeah.
maybe I chose this. It's a very, very different perspective, and much more empowering.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to add for people as well, we like to give people useful information, and that they can do something for themselves. And sun gazing is really easy, and so is stargazing, and it's free. So sun gazing is about, if you're an early bird, which I'm not, getting up at sunrise, and up until an hour after sunrise, you can literally stare straight into the sun and ask, you know for the sun to burn out any blocks you've got in your system, any addictions you've got in your system. It's basically source energy coming into your body, and you know, you're the architect of it. You're the architect of your reality. You're the architect of your body, and being focused on what you're sending into your body with intention. In the morning, in sun gazing, you can do the same at sunset for up to an hour before sunset. I like to catch the sunset and watch the sun go down, and just have that 20-30 minutes of healing if the weather's good. So you've got that, but you can also do the same thing with stargazing. You can lie under the stars and you can ask the light of the stars, to heal you and heal any blocks you've got in your system as well. So there's plenty of stuff that people can do for free. Let's face it, a lot of law of manifesting people that join these workshops are joining the workshops because they need something. They're trying to manifest more, whether it's money or a bigger house or a partner or something like that.
Well, another thing too that just occurred to me is it's also really good exercise is to ask yourself why you want something. Because many times the why, what you're looking for, can be satisfied in other ways, or you may already have it in your life. So to look at why is it so, and I'm talking about specific manifestations people are going for. Why do you want this thing? What is it gonna give you that you don't already have? And that might be surprising for a lot of people also to see,
Yeah.
like, oh, I want it because, I want to feel important, I want to feel rich, I want to feel this. And then there's other ways you can see, I already have this in my life, or I could do it this way. And then that's usually when the manifestation actually ends up happening
Yeah.
because you're not giving so much attention to it.
Yeah. Susan, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just walk through life and just be, have kindness, open the door for someone. If someone's struggling and can I help you? Be kind, because I have found in my life that when I take the time to help someone or even say a kind word or just say hello, that in itself is manifesting
Yeah.
um, positivity. And I have found that that's what comes back to me is those people that you're attracting. Those people are coming back into your life, and they have, things to give. Things happen, okay, is what I'm trying to say. And you're not really manifesting on one thing. It's just your whole outlook on life. And, choose your words and think about the words that you are speaking. And those will, the words, the good words will come back in your favor.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
understanding that, isn't it? People, like, everything that goes out is coming back.
right.
Everything.
Yes.
Even if we were taught that in school, we'd be living in a different world.
Well, I mean, for instance, I had to drive in this morning and no, I mean, I had all this traffic coming in from an exit and I was just trying to get over and no one would let me over. And I just got so aggravated. I just started screaming at the window with this girl, and then I just threw my hands up and said, "Oh Lord, please forgive me." Because, I didn't want to manifest that and I was manifesting it. So, anyway,
And you got there safe and sound.
my next thing was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get in an accident because I'm having road rage.
Yeah,
So, Lisa, what's your experience of law of attraction?
I got a little bit of a cold, so I'm just gonna, if I start hacking, I'm gonna mute myself. Yeah, so with the law of attraction, what I have found is that for everybody it's different. So I see that there's people that are teaching it on social media, but I think that depending on, everybody's got a different structure or a way that they can go about it. There's no I guess there's no one way to skin a cat type of thing. You know what I mean? And so my mind has always been, I project myself to where I want to be, and I start living that, and
Yeah.
that it just basically manifests itself. That's how it's always worked for me since I was 28 years old when I kind of came across that, and I just have been following that. I just didn't know it was called law of attraction or manifestation, because back then 98. We weren't really taught that.
Can you
Yeah,
give
well,
an
since I'm,
I was
yeah,
gonna
I was going to say the same thing,
what?
Laura.
What?
Can you give some
Yeah,
examples?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
So
mean,
there's
we've known each other for 3.5 years coming up now, 3.5 years. This must be our 4th year probably in August. And Lisa does manifest. She's a very joyful, bright, shiny person, and she manifests all the time. She's brilliant at it. So Laura and I wanted to ask you the same question. Can you give us some examples of what you've manifested?
Yeah, so for like one thing is that I'll intend on what I want my week to look like. So I would always say to even my boyfriend, I'd say this is going to be the best week of 2023 or 2022, and it ends up being the best week or supersedes the previous week. And not to say that shit doesn't happen, because I've had some of that happen, but at the same time, there's been always where I've looked back, even at the day, I'll declare what kind of day I'm going to have. And then all of a sudden, I'll have, like for my business, I'll have orders that show up out of nowhere. I'll have emails from people that offer new business that, are in alignment with me. And so it's just one of those things. And so, you know how they say protect your energy? I don't believe in my energy or anything needs protecting, because as soon as we declare that, then we're thinking that there's something that's attacking us. But I just, operate with a different try to operate with a different frequency. But it helps now that I think that the energies aren't suppressing us like they used to as a species. I just with my previous appointment today, I was just talking about that, how he was saying that him and his girlfriend are moving to Tulum, and they're going to be opening up a business there. And then all of a sudden, it's like, what's amazing, he goes, once you focus, how everything becomes in alignment. And I said, yes, but also a lot of the energies that were stifling us as a species, those have been lifted. Those are gone now. And so this is why I think people are, and why manifestation's big, is because people are finding that they're able to manifest a lot easier than ever before.
Mhm.
And you said you used to, or I don't know if you still do it, that you connect to source in the morning. You connect your energy field to source. So are you like bringing down white light from the sun? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so basically it's for the way I see it is I ask questions. So I'll be lying there in bed, I'm going to be quiet and I'll just ask questions. Or even when I'm driving, I'll ask source questions. And based on if I'm really aware, then you're going to get the answer before you finish asking the question. So for every day, that's going to look different, right? Depending on what your need is. Some days it could be just pure joy, but again, I think when it comes to law of attraction or manifestation, focus on what you want rather than what you don't have. And a lot of people always focus on what they don't have or what's not in their life, and it's like there's something called delusion, and the world doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And so a person can be completely delusional or think completely big, and another person can say that person's crazy, they're never going to achieve that. But yet, people, when they state it, they already know that they can achieve it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, that people do, don't they? I mean, that reminds me of that story from Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was in the military when he was 18, and he sneaked out of the barracks to go and enter his first bodybuilding competition, and he won, and he sneaked back in, but he got caught. And instead of court-martialing him, they put him in charge of training, his colleagues in the military. And he told them, "I'm going to be an actor in California, in Hollywood," and they thought he was a complete lunatic. And look how well he's done, and he was even mayor as well. So
yeah, governor.
yeah, governor, isn't it? Yeah, believe in yourself, guys. If you can do it. Obviously, if you've got a terrible singing voice, you're not going to be like the top opera singer in the world. So be
Yeah.
realistic, but don't give up.
But like
Um,
Janine, Janine, you were always saying before, like, so for example, like if like, it's like the levels of consciousness. So the golf ball size compared to the stadium size
yeah,
consciousness. So
yeah,
if a person is thinking big thoughts or big dreams, right? Normally we'd be called, oh, that person's a dreamer or big thinker, or money doesn't grow on trees, things like that. But the thing is that is you might be thinking a whole lot bigger than that other person, or depending on what their reality is going to be different from your reality. So I'd say to people, that's not my reality, that's your reality. And
Yeah.
so I think that, it's just, when you try to put us all into a box, right, then we're not understanding what our true power is, because inevitably we have something to offer that is different from one another, just as powerful, but other people may have not tapped into it yet.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to share with people was when you were talking about you do your asking your questions when you're driving. When you're on the motorway or freeway, we call it the motorway in the UK, you actually go into theta brainwave frequency very quickly, right? So it's like the noise and the just being really focused on the road ahead, you change brainwave frequency. So you're actually in theta. So driving up and down the freeway is actually meditation in that respect. You're actually in a hypnotic state, and that you're more connected to your higher self at that time, your higher consciousness, your higher mind. So it's a really good time to ask the questions, like Lisa was just saying, because that's when you're connected. And most of us drive on the freeway or some point, if you've got one close by. It's worth trying because it does make a difference. I taught my friend how to do it when we were driving up to Scotland from the middle of England, how to ask questions of source, and the answers would come back on the side of a white truck, literally like in big bold print. And she was blown away when I was teaching her how to do it. She was like, that's just like miraculous. Like the
Yeah.
answers just drive past you on the truck or in somebody's bumper sticker in front of you or something like that. It's amazing what we're capable of.
And then Janine, like even like with people that have something that they're really looking forward to, they're working towards, and say if that business deal falls dead. I had that happen. That was in 2018, and we had a chance to take a really unique patented product. We took to $1 billion company, and they were really, really interested. They were going to rename the product. They already were working on packaging. And then the person that held the patent, that owned it, the inventor, she choked on it. And it was just like, what the heck just happened here? And then, so that would have been very lucrative for her. That would have been very lucrative for the $1 billion company out of Florida. And it would have been lucrative for myself and my partner. But when it did go down, it was just like, it was almost like a godsend. So it was not meant to fly. And my commitment to that whole deal would have been, yeah, I would have been earning some money, but I would have been solely responsible for marketing of it and the success of that product. And so if you can't have everybody in it to win it 100%, then, so that was taken out. And later I was so hurt by that, and disappointed, I should say, more exactly the word. But it ended up being a godsend because
Mhm.
it wasn't the red direction I was meant to be.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot when you're manifesting anything. You can be going down one pathway and then boom, something comes and just that disintegrates completely. And you're like, oh my God, where am I going with this? And then something better always comes along. That's been the case in my life.
Yeah.
Always replaced with something better,
Yes.
or or I get a massive discount on the product that had something wrong with it because there was something wrong with it. So always something better comes along. So when things don't go the way I hope, and I shouldn't say the word hope, but where I would like them to be, I'm much more in acceptance of, okay, so what's next, rather than
Yeah.
getting upset of it. But that takes practice as well. That's the joy of being a little bit older,
Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah. But
hopefully a little bit wiser.
yeah, just take it with all a grain of salt, and that everything's going to work out for a highest good. I think is a not so bad way to go.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, ladies. Well, I think we've come to the end of the show today. Unless you've got anything else you want to share, we will say goodbye. Thanks to our audience for listening, and please check out our products below. And we'll see you all next time on Talking Timelines. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.